Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the UN General Assembly Monday, and as usual, his speech was a blockbuster. CBN News senior editor John Waggy joins us now with some analysis. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Mark.
First of all, was there a theme to the speech?
I think the theme, Mark, mostly was our fight here in Israel is your fight. I think that he wants to take the wider message to the UN and the world beyond that Israel isn't just in an isolated fight along its borders with Gaza or with Syria or with Lebanon, that Israel is on the front lines of the fight against radical Islam, and the rest of the world has to participate whether they want to or not.
Well, in previous years, Netanyahu has sounded the alarm against a nuclear Iran. He had another warning today. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, in previous years, maybe you remember, Mark, the famous Red Line speech of a couple years ago when Netanyahu held up a chart and basically said that when Iran reaches nuclear enrichment to this point, that Israel won't tolerate it, that Israel will act. Well, this wasn't as specific a speech concerning Iran today, but what he did say, it was a warning about ISIS, and he said, it's great that the world is participating in this collective effort against ISIS, but he said, to defeat ISIS and not to deal with Iran's nuclear program is like winning the battle and losing the war. His ambassador to the United States, Israel's ambassador Ron Dermer, just said a couple weeks ago that the threat of a nuclear Iran is 1,000 times more dangerous than the threat of ISIS. So that tells you where the Israeli government is coming from concerning the weight that the world's putting on ISIS versus the weight it should put on a nuclear Iran.
Most definitely. Well, he said he came to refute the lies against his nation. How did he do that, John?
Well, one of the things that's really irritated the Israelis are the charges of genocide, specifically leveled by Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority. And that's very aggravating to Israelis because they say, here Hamas is on our doorstep committing war crimes left and right, and yet the United Nations Human Rights Commission is investigating only Israel for war crimes. And he said on previous occasions, you want to look for war crimes? Go to Syria. Go to Hamas and the Gaza Strip. Go to ISIS. Don't come to Israel. And he essentially repeated that today and said, he took a dig at Mahmoud Abbas, saying basically that Abbas did a PhD on Holocaust denial, and he said it's kind of ironic to have charges of genocide coming from somebody who did a thesis on Holocaust denial. So he got a little dig in at Abbas there.
Yeah, he sure did. Well, unfortunately, many nations in the UN General Assembly pay little attention to Prime Minister Netanyahu. So who do you think was his audience for this speech?
Well, I think a couple of audiences. First of all, the West in general. He's wanting to alert the West that this is the threat of radical Islam is going to affect everyone. The other audience is the American audience, because America continues to be Israel's best friend, and his speeches always play well among the grassroots in the United States. And we are coming up on Election Day here in a couple months, or about a month. So I think it was a target American audience, the U.S. Congress, the administration, and the West in general.
All right. Our senior editor, John Waggy, thanks again, as always, for your insights. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.